is that you in front of me? Coming back for even more, they tell you the same. Well, you must be a masochist to love a modern rapper on his last leg, on his last leg.
So Frightened Rabbit were a indie band from Selkirk in Scotland, and as is often the case, there was a central character, which was a guy called Scott Hutchinson, who was their main songwriter and singer. Actually, their history is their first album came out in 2006. They had 5 albums over 10 years. And as the time goes by, they're gaining more band members. So it starts being mostly just Scott and his brother. And by the time they're finished, there's 5 of them. And the name Frightened Rabbit is a reference to himself, Scott Hutchinson. He was apparently very timid and shy as a child, and it was a nickname that his mother had for him, or referred to him as this. Scott died in 2018, and that's when the band stopped. Hi, my name's Dan. If you know this album, or if you're hearing it for the first time, I'd love to know what your thoughts are on it. Please hit me up in the comments down here. I am on this long journey of discovering the best albums in the world. Why don't you join me? The easiest way to do that is to subscribe. Again, there's a big red button somewhere down here that you can use to do that. So this was the second album by Frightened Rabbit, and by this stage there were 3 of them. So the band's growing over time as they gain more members. And so to describe it musically, basically initially I felt like, yes, here we go again. It's indie rock. There's a lot of music that's in this kind of similar space. And the defining characteristics seem to be an electric guitar that's played in a kind of what I call a washy way, which means it's got a constant sound being hit as you hit the chords. This provides a kind of big backdrop for the music. And it's not all like that, but there's quite a lot of it that is like that. And when it's not being thrashy in the background, there's a kind of jangly thing going. So there's a lot of other bands that have been in this kind of sonic space. I think particularly of The Killers and Arcade Fire and others whose names just suddenly gone out of my head. And there seem to be similar voices. So voices, I find it interesting how voices kind of go in fashions. The guy Scott who's singing has got a kind of slightly broken sound to his voice. Again, this is very common for this kind of stuff, and to the extent that when I first started listening, I was thinking, have I heard this band before? Because the voice sounds remarkably similar. It's a slightly Scottish version of the voice, so yeah, that's okay. That's a slight variation. So musically, for the most of the time, I didn't find it certainly not particularly different or particularly interesting. Towards the end, it gets more acoustic and more interesting, and so that's a good thing. The words, there are times when you can't hear them. When you can hear them, they're quite personal and somewhat interesting. There's a certain amount of swearing in there, so and adult themes, and having read up, apparently it is very personal. This is why it sounds personal. So, yeah, better than some, I think, in that sense. Now, here's where I have a big problem. The big problem is that towards the end of the second time listening through this album, I have quite an interesting moment. Let me try and describe this to you. So, Normally, I listen to an album once, completely dry, or without context, so I don't really know the background of the band. And then often I'll do some reading up and then listen to the album again. Sometimes those two things kind of go side by side. So this time, and it was just a few minutes ago now, I was listening through and reading about the band at the same time. and I was aware kind of vaguely that from earlier reading before this listen through that the band had stopped because their frontman Scott had died, and that was in 2018, so it's quite recent. But I was reading about how he died. The stuff on the Wikipedia page for the band wasn't exactly clear, and so I started reading on his own Wikipedia page, and basically he took his own life, and his body was found floating in the Forth River. At the point where I was reading that, the second to last song was playing, and the song is called Floating in the Forth. And it's a song in which he talks about committing suicide and his body being found floating in the Forth. So it's very prophetic. And the line that keeps coming back is, I think I'll save suicide for another year. Now, this has had a big effect on me in the last few minutes, and I am not sure what score I'm going to give this. I'm going to think about this for a while, but I'm going to leave that with you. That's it from me for now.
And the door shut, I was vacuum packed, shrink wrapped out of air. And the spine collapsed and the eyes rolled back to stare at my starving brain. And fully clothed, I'll float away. Down the Forth, into the sea. Oh, I think I'll save suicide for another day.